Good afternoon, Prynhawn Da. My name is Claire Morgan. I am the Pro-Vice-Chancellor for Education and Student Experience here at Cardiff University. And first of all, it's so lovely to see a full lecture theatre. I am really delighted to see you all. I'm absolutely delighted to be invited to do the initial address for this TEDxCardiffUniversity event, which will feature some really inspiring individuals from across the university community. And I'm also pleased to be able to make this address in an equally inspiring venue, our newly opened Centre for Student Life. This is a purpose-built environment which has been designed with the student experience in mind and demonstrates the university commitment to put student health, well-being and welfare at the top of our priorities and at the heart of our campus. TEDxCardiffUniversity is now in its 4th year and has become an annual celebration of ideas from across the Cardiff University community. This event acts as a platform to showcase our students, our staff, and the innovations and world-class research that we're known for. It features 6 inspirational talks from staff, alumni, and current students of Cardiff University, each bringing their own perspective to this year's theme, the future of the workplace. This year's event will explore how the world of work has changed since the pandemic began and asks the question, will the workplace ever be the same again? I'm also really delighted to introduce our alumni host for the event, Mallory Williams. Mallory graduated from Cardiff University in 2020 with a first-class degree in Welsh and journalism. And she also has a postgraduate degree in broadcast journalism, also from Cardiff. She has since gone on to become a popular journalist for newiddion S4C, S4C, and will shortly be moving to a new role with BBC Cymru Wales. So finally, it is for me to say, enjoy the event, Ymunwch, enjoy yourselves, and I hope it stimulates lots of ideas and discussions for you. And thank you for sharing in the inspiring stories that the university community has to tell. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Mallory to now host the event. Thank you. Diolch yn fawr.
Prynhawn Da, welcome to you all to this Cardiff University TED Talks event of 2021. And how lovely it is to see so many faces here. Ni nôl ac mewn adeilad newydd hefyd in this great new building, the Centre for Student Life. As an alumni, myself now, still getting used to that title, I'm really honoured to be hosting this 4th TEDx event at Cardiff. If you, like myself, have never been to a TEDx event before, these non-profit events are held all across the world, mewn 100 o ieithoedd gwahanol in 100 different languages, all spreading new innovative ideas and inspiring audiences. Cyflwyniadau sy'n procio'r meddwl ac sy'n agor byd newydd o bosibiliadau a syniadau. A'r thema eleni, dyfodol y gweithle'n. The theme this year, the future of the workplace. a subject we've all thought about a lot recently, I'm sure. We've all had to adapt in whatever stage of our careers we're in or whichever walk of life. And what the 6 talkers will be asking, as Claire mentioned in her introduction, is if the workplace will ever be the same. Does it need to return to the way it was? What are the questions we should be asking our employers, our future employers? How do we ensure a diverse and inclusive workplace? And the overall impact, of course, on our mental health and the balance between working from home or in the office. Now, before I pass on the microphone to our first speaker today, we'd like to thank our sponsor for this event. Diolch yn fawr iawn I Addysgwyr Cymru. Thank you to Educators Wales for sponsoring an organisation where you can access information, training and career opportunities, whether you're looking to take that first step in your career or moving on to the next stage in your education career. So, diolch yn fawr iawn I Addysgwyr Cymru. Now for the exciting part, to introduce our first speaker today. Megan Wesley is a Cardiff University alumni and co-founder and director of Liberatum, which is a corporate wellness startup focused on transforming the lives and well-being of people at work. And what Megan will be highlighting in her talk today is the most important question you should be asking your future employer. She'll be focusing on how graduates have the power to shape the future of the workplace. What they demand of their employers will set a precedence for future working practices, Megan says. While there is greater awareness of the need for well-being in the workplace following the COVID pandemic, Megan says there's still much to be done to shift the dial to improve well-being in the workplace, something we can all resonate with, I'm sure. Felly rhowch groeso cynnes iawn, give a very warm welcome to our first speaker today, Megan Wesley.
So, I'd like us to start today with you imagining you're sat at a job interview with your future employer. You've answered all of their questions, even the really tough ones, and you think you've done pretty well. But now it's time for you to ask them some questions. Of course, you prepared a few beforehand about what it's like to work there, and you want to ask them what they enjoy most about being at the company. And these are all great questions. But what do you think is the most important question you should be asking your future employer? I'm going to share with you what that is, but I'd like to go back to where it all began for me and share a personal story with you first. So this goes back to when I was 5 years old, and it was my first ever parents' evening. I wasn't able to go to reception or preschool, so I went straight into year 1. And it's fair to say the experience was daunting for me as I tried to settle into a new environment. So my mum went along to my parents' evening and she asked the teacher how I was getting on. And the teacher said that she thought that I was lazy. And my mum replied, "Lazy? But Megan comes home after school and she gets her books out and she tries to learn. I don't think that's the sign of a lazy child." The teacher realised that her comments weren't appropriate. So when my mum came home, I was waiting by the door and I asked her how I did. And she put on a brave face for me and she said, "You did really well. Things are going great." And I thought, something doesn't add up here. And I said, "But Mum, I'm in the square group." Obviously, in my mind, this square group wasn't a great place to be. Now, this was my first experience of learning. And what's interesting about this experience is my expectations didn't meet my reality. What underpinned this experience was a feeling of shame for being put into the square group and a feeling that I wasn't accepted. And what's really interesting is that I turned up to learn and that I was put into the square group. My expectations didn't meet my reality. And when we apply this to the workplace, we see this all the time. Expectations versus reality. We all start out with hopes and dreams. We contemplate who and what we want to be when we grow up. We're excited to go out into the world and make our mark. Yet, for many of us, somewhere along the line, our experiences in the workplace can stifle our confidence, our creativity, and even our sense of purpose. For many of us, our workplace has a huge impact on our health and well-being. And while traditionally job seekers have focused on things like pay, working hours, and career development, these things can only keep us in a job for so long if the working conditions aren't right and if our well-being suffers. And there's extensive research to show this. In 2019 to 20, work-related stress, depression, and anxiety accounted for 55% of work-related ill health. Now, I'm not here to frighten you about starting your first job, but really I'd like to empower you. As the new generation entering the workplace, you have an opportunity to shape what the future of the workplace looks like and to choose to work for an employer that puts their people first. So how do you know what this looks like? Well, I'd like you to take a moment to just think about what a positive working environment feels like to you. You might be thinking, somewhere I can make a difference, somewhere I can be myself, somewhere that I can learn and develop. And these are all perfectly reasonable asks. In fact, they're foundational to our sense of well-being. I've co-founded a company called Libratum, and I've been very fortunate in my career to spend a lot of time researching and analysing what makes us well as individuals and what makes us well in the workplace. So I'd like to paint a picture for you of what a positive working environment looks like. And I like to look at this as 4 key elements. And these elements have fundamentally changed the way that I view the workplace. The first one is trust. That you feel trusted by your employer and that your trust in them is equally well-founded. The second is recognition. That we feel valued and recognised for who we are and what we do. And when people feel recognised, they often have a strong sense of worthiness. And this really leads us to believe and encourages us that we can achieve great things. The third is acceptance, that we feel we can be ourselves and we feel accepted in the workplace. As social creatures, our number one human need is acceptance, and our number one fear is rejection. And when we feel more accepted in the workplace, we're often more creative. And when we're more creative, we benefit and the company benefits too. The last one is purpose, that we feel purposeful in our work and passionate about what we do. And purpose is really the reason we get up in the morning and do what we do every day. So I'd like to take a moment to just speak a bit more about the role of purpose. If we take the example of Cisco, who are a world leader in IT. Cisco were voted the #1 great place to work globally. They're recognised for investing in their employees and the wider community. They invest heavily in well-being, and they've been very forward-thinking in this space. They actually have a well-being programme in place, and they give their employees 5 days every year to do something to give back in the community. But in 2015, as part of their purpose strategy, Cisco had a vision to end homelessness in Santa Clara, San Francisco, which has a homeless population of around 8,000 people. Now, this was a purpose their people could connect with. Cisco sells IT products, but the world recognises them for their contribution to homelessness and humanitarian causes. Their people see themselves as not just working for an IT company, but working for a company that's supporting people around the world. They see themselves as part of something bigger than themselves. And it doesn't just have to be big organisations that do this. It can be small, agile organisations that foster trust, recognition, acceptance and purpose. For example, Tony's Chocolonely, where 77% of employees on Glassdoor would actually recommend working there to their friends. So Tony's Chocolonely is a Dutch confectionery company that produces and sells chocolate. Yet it's not just any confectionery company. It's a company with a mission to make chocolate 100% slave-free. It fights for equality in the chocolate trade. The people who work there don't just work for a confectionery company. They work for a company that's fighting for equality and trying to make chocolate 100% slave-free. And I have to vouch for it, it also tastes really good. So we can't underestimate the role that trust, recognition, acceptance and purpose play in our happiness, our motivation, and our longevity at a company. So when we consider that in Britain, the average person will spend 84,365 hours working over their lifetime, we have to ask ourselves that if time is one of our most valuable resources, how do we make this time meaningful? And as the new generation entering the workplace, you really have an opportunity to shape what the future of the workplace looks like. So let's go back to your interview with your future employer when the interviewer asks you, do you have any questions for me? So I'll let you in for a secret. The most important question you should be asking your future employer is, what is your employee well-being strategy? When you're considering an employer, you want to know up front that they take well-being seriously and that they're developing an approach to foster trust, recognition, acceptance and purpose. And at this point, their answer is going to reveal a lot to you. Now, this is still a fairly new area for many companies, so how can you tell how developed their strategy is? Well, if the first thing they start talking about is their gym benefit, have they really delved deep enough? Ask if there's any other areas of well-being they focus on. And if the hiring manager or recruiter that you're speaking with doesn't know enough about this, ask if you can speak to someone else. Secondly, if they start talking about one-off or siloed initiatives such as an employee assistant helpline or even a team day, consider if this approach is really part of an overall strategy that's going to deliver trust, recognition, acceptance and purpose. So what does a well-developed strategy look like and how can you look out for that? Well, firstly, when a company's thought about well-being holistically, they don't simply view it as mental ill health or physical health, but they consider all of the elements that make us well as individuals. And this can include our environment, our relationships, our purpose, as well as our emotional, mental and physical well-being. They're developing an approach that supports employees across all of these areas. Secondly, where you see a company have a well-being program in place that's focused on prevention. So this is about driving a positive culture that stops employees reaching a crisis point of stress and burnout. Finally, do your research beforehand. Have you seen the leadership team talking about well-being? Or have you seen the company engage in any initiatives you align with? Don't be afraid to ask questions and dig deep. Remember, this is where you're going to be spending the next 84,365 hours. It matters. The really good news here is that you have the power to choose to work for an employer that puts well-being as a top priority. You can absolutely vote with your feet, and you can be more demanding of your employer. You can also be a driving force in helping your future company gain a competitive edge. Because we all know that when we love what we do and when we love where we work, the best ideas and creativity comes out. So remember, you don't have to be in the square group. You have the power to shape the future of the workplace.
Well, thank you very much to Megan. We'll move on now to a talk from a member of staff, Professor Peter Madden, OBE. Peter is the Director of Fydd, a company advising on smart sustainability. Previously, he was CEO of Future Cities Catapult, Forum of the Future, and of Green Alliance. He is currently on the board for the Crown Estate. He is chair of Building with Nature and Igloo Regenerations. He writes a regular column on future cities for Medium, and he received an OBE for services to sustainable development. So with that wealth of experience, what Peter will focus on today is the topic of bringing the natural world to where we work. Access to nature makes us happier and healthier, he says. Making space for nature everywhere is good for biodiversity and is also good for mental and physical well-being. So what Peter will be asking is, how do we integrate nature into our workplace and entice people back to the office? Please welcome Professor Peter Madden.
Picture yourself at work. You're sitting at your desk, standing at your workstation, you look around you, what do you see? Chances are lots of concrete, glass and steel, too much grey. Our work environments and the city centres around them are monochrome, monotone and, frankly dull and denuded of nature. I believe we'll enjoy our workplaces more and work more productively if they're greener. Greening our workplaces will be better for productivity, better for health and well-being of employees, and also, of course, better for the planet. Now, I've worked in some dodgy and frankly depressing workplaces in the past. I'm sure you have or you will. But I've also, luckily, worked in some amazing places like this. And when I'm around that greenery, whether in the building or outside, it lifts my spirits. And I know it gives loads more benefits. So over recent years, I've teamed up with city leaders, with property developers, with the green movement to try and make the places we live and work better. Better for people and better for nature. So what do I mean by greening the workplace? Well, of course, lots of nature, plants and green walls inside, but also loads of nature, trees, shrubs and ponds outside. Green roofs above us, wildflower meadows below. And I visited this building in Amsterdam a few years ago, and it used to be a post office building. It's been repurposed and it's lovely. So in an increasingly urban world, our contact with nature, which has been part of being human since forever, is diminishing. And it's often, of course, the most deprived communities who have the least connection. People on low incomes are much less likely to have access to green space, and black people are 4 times less likely than white people to have outside space at home. So my vision is that we should all be able to experience nature when you look out the window, step onto the terrace, walk out of the front door. So you shouldn't have to have a back garden or live in a leafy suburb or live near the countryside. You should make space for nature everywhere, for everyone. And most of us in the UK work in offices, I do, but this greening should not just be for people in offices. It should be for shop assistants, warehouse employees, nurses. And lots of people have to drive for their work, and it can be punishing. So their break from the motorway, well, it shouldn't be Greasy Ian's van in some lay-by. The places like Gloucester Services offer a green respite. I mean, who knew a motorway service station could be that lovely? So we want to get people back into work, happier and healthier and more productive. So let's make the work environment greener, yeah? Let's give them access to nature. The alternative doesn't exactly set the heart aflutter. So what's the evidence for this? Why we should green our workplaces? Well, I do think this area is under-researched given its importance. We can be pretty sure the employees will be healthier, happier and more productive. So why would they be healthier? Well, it might surprise you that air pollution levels indoors are usually worse than air pollution outside, even in busy city centres. But guess what? Plants do a really good job of cleaning the air. And NASA did a study as part of the space program, famous study many years ago, and there's been studies since that absolutely prove that plants and the soil they sit in are really good at removing harmful toxins. So more and more buildings like this are sorry, and also there was a paper a couple of years ago published in The Lancet that concluded that people live longer if they live near green spaces, they have local green spaces. So we're seeing more and more buildings like this one, which I am lucky enough to work in occasionally, getting WELL certification that proves they meet high health and well-being standards. So employees will be healthier, they will also be happier, because access to nature has been found to improve sleep, relieve stress, and reduce negative emotions. There's evidence that being in natural spaces, even just looking out of a window on a natural scene, calms us. 2014 University of California study found that being in front of attractive plants or just images of nature increases positive emotions and pro-social behaviours. So employees would be healthier, they'd be happier, but they'd also be more productive. There's some Harvard research in 2015 that found cognitive performance scores in participants in working in green spaces was on average twice as high as people working in conventional environments. They got smarter with nature. There's been lots of case studies from the World Green Business Council and others, and I think the message is getting through now to the industry. Even those kind of warehouses and distribution sheds that are famous or infamous for the terrible working conditions, the message is even getting through there. You know, the idea that keeping people in a metal shed without any natural light for shift after shift isn't good for attracting workers, for maintaining them, or for increasing their productivity. So we're seeing more warehouse developments like this one in the Netherlands, that has greening inside and out. So greening the workplace, healthier, happier, more productive. And of course, nature benefits as you make more space for bugs, for birds, for biodiversity. So if greening buildings is so amazing and beneficial, why isn't it happening more? You know, we've got these half-empty offices, we've got the health and mental health crisis in this country, and also the ecological and climate emergencies unfolding around us. So why aren't we doing this everywhere? Well, there are barriers. I'm just going to talk to you about 5 of them. First, short-termism. Sometimes, you know, people just want to build cheaply and then others can pay the cost later. And I really hate that, you know, the short-termism. And of course, people have pressure from clients for cheap spaces or pressure from shareholders and investors for returns. But this short-termism is going to hurt everybody because you think about flooding. So flooding is going to affect lots of people. You can use green infrastructure to slow down the water and give it somewhere to soak away. We want healthy employees. And yeah, why aren't we encouraging active travel and cycling and walking? And our cities are going to get hotter and hotter because of climate change. So why aren't we investing in natural cooling with trees and greenery? So too often property developers focus on quick returns and walk away as soon as they've sold. Second barrier is about ongoing care. People don't want the hassle of maintenance. So living things need care. If you pour and lay concrete, you can largely forget about it, but greenery needs to be tended. Watering plants, watering plants, pruning branches, raking leaves. So that's why many developers and building managers prefer hard infrastructure. And the government still prefers to invest capital to build things, but not the money to maintain them over time. The third barrier is lack of concern about placemaking. So developers and planners think about the buildings, but not the spaces around them, not the context. So, you know, what do you think something like this does to the context around them? Has it framed the choices for people who have to live near there or work there? And greening our public realm also, of course, requires thinking about the spaces between buildings, yeah, not just the buildings themselves. So what should they look like? Who should have access to them? And who should look after them? The fourth barrier is about promises not delivered. And sometimes because the industry just doesn't know how to do this stuff well, but often the industry promises the world in their glossy brochures and their slick CGI, and then, you know, little by little, you know, bit by bit, the greenery is chipped away. And what do we end up with? Well, plastic plants or dodgy astroturf. I mean, what even is that? Or, you know, they send Fred down to the local garden centre with a wad of cash and say, you know, buy some shrubs. And he buys them on the ones on special offer because, yeah, they're a bit, you know, looking a bit worse for their wear, and that's why they're on special offer. And, you know, 6 months later, you can get the picture, yeah? So promises not delivered. And the fifth one is nature offsetting. So sometimes developers do nature, but they do it somewhere else. So they concrete and glass and steel here, and a lovely nature park somewhere over there. And of course, you know, that kind of off-site offsetting is great. It's really good to have that park or that nature reserve. But for me, it's not good enough, because only a certain portion of the population can access, drive to, or feel at home in those special places. We should have nature everywhere for everyone, and that means where they live and work in cities. So you will, I hope, have a sense that I'm passionate about this agenda and making it happen. And thankfully, there are organisations that get this, that care about green infrastructure, that want to make amazing places, that think about long-term, and think about value in a wider sense. So I chair an organisation called Building with Nature. And we've set a set of standards, a framework for what good green infrastructure looks like. And planners and developers can use that to build good stuff, and we help them build it, and they have no excuse not to. And also work with property companies like Igloo Regeneration and the Crown Estate, and they're striving to bring the natural world into the built environment. So some examples. So in the heart of London, the Crown Estate and others have this scheme, Wild West End. Biodiversity corridors linking the great parks of London. And it stretches across biodiverse roofs, planters, green walls, pocket habitats on buildings. And it's encouraging birds, bees and bats back into this iconic part of London. And people get to experience nature in their everyday lives. So employees on Regent Street can get away from the bustle down there, go up to the roof and tend a herb garden or the allotment. Igloo Regeneration developed Nottingham Science Park on a heavily contaminated waste tip. Instead of hard surfaces, they laid these interconnected wooden lily pads suspended above a wetland habitat with wildflower meadows. And the reed beds provide sustainable drainage. So people working on the science park can walk out, and the local community also can walk out into the nature reserve and enjoy the amazing landscape. And this is Forth Valley Royal Hospital. It's a Building with Nature scheme, and last year we gave it our national award because we loved the way that it combined and used nature to support healing and healthy living. So visitor gardens welcome you at the entrance, courtyard gardens run through the buildings, and outside the restored lochs and forests provide a sanctuary. Yeah. So this greening benefits both the patients because they get better sooner, they're well quicker, but also the staff and visitors, because it encourages better mental and physical health. So the good news is there are some amazing things happening out there, but we do need to do more and faster. During the pandemic, I, for one, really valued access to local green spaces, particularly in lockdowns, and I think a lot of the population felt the same. So, as we're rethinking our cities and our work patterns post-pandemic, I think we should be creating mixed neighbourhoods in 15-minute cities, brim full of nature. So, when you go out to work, why shouldn't you step out of your front door into greenness? Walk to your job along tree-lined streets. Work in a place full of plants. Eat your lunch in a pocket park. That's what the future should be like. But if we want to entice people back into the workplace, increase productivity and happiness, and do good for the planet, let's make our work environment greener. Let's make space for nature everywhere, for everyone. Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr I Peter, thank you very much. Now moving on to our third talk and the last of this first half of the event from Huasin Bu, and she's also known as Pistachio, which in Chinese means the person that makes you happy. She's currently studying an MSc in Strategic Marketing in Cardiff's Business School. Pistachio has 5 years working experience in sales and marketing before coming to Cardiff and is driven by curiosity and her adventures from work and life. And her chosen topic under the theme will be the metaverse workplace. Pistachio says the metaverse workplace has become a hot topic since the pandemic began, and now with big tech companies shifting their focus into the metaverse. But what does it actually mean, and how do we access this metaverse? Looking forward to this one, so please welcome Pistachio.
Hi, call me Pistachio. That'll be easier than my Chinese name. I want to tell you, oh, this is not my slides. I want to tell you about my old work. I was a marketing consultant. I used to work and live in China, and I traveled all over the country. As you may or may not know, China is huge. If you think the UK is big, well, we could fit 39 UK in China. And I had to travel everywhere. I need to talk to my clients about their business solutions. I need to provide training for them, the sales training, marketing training, and on and on and on. And take a guess, how many business trips I got per year? Approximately 127 days. And how productive it looked like. Let me tell you, one day my clients called me, "Hi, Pistachio, could you please come to our company next Monday?" I would say, "Hang on, let me check my schedule. I just finished another business trip." Monday, sorry, unfortunately, I'm totally full. Let's say Tuesday, 8 a.m. All right, there's no tree in the plan either, but 9 a.m. Looks fine, but the weather forecast is totally unpredictable. Let's say 10 a.m. Finally, after such small conversation, I finally arrived at the airport. But it will take me 1 hour to get to the airport. It will take me another 1 hour to take taxi and go to the hotel. It will take me another 1 hour, settle down in the hotel and get ready for the meeting. And you can see how productive my business trip looked like. That's only a tiny piece part of my business trip. A tiny part. And sometimes I think I'm totally tapped out. I need to sit down and take a break. Now, do you know what can solve my problem? That's today. Today, metaverse. Metaverse might save my life. How can I solve the problem? Well, now are you ready? Please allow me bring you to the future of the workplace. The metaverse workplace. Suppose my clients call me again, but at the moment, my client is in the UK and I'm in China. So usually, it will take me 15 to 16 hours from China to the UK, and even need to overcome the jet lag. And now, how long it will take me to the UK? Look at me. One step. Then I'm in the UK because I'm in the metaverse workplace. But if in the real world, I need to book tickets, I need to book hotel, I need to get ready for my luggage. But what do I need in the metaverse workplace if I want to meet people together? Take a guess. So, to join up, all we need is a headset. What's going to happen? So, suppose, even though I am not in the metaverse place at the moment, but my clients wearing their headset. What's going to happen? So they're calling me now, while we're in the different world. Here, I'm in the real world. They are in the virtual world. So I'm on the screen, even though I didn't wear my headset. So what's going to happen? I still can upload the PowerPoint, deliver the presentation, get sales training done, and we can discuss the business solutions together. And more important thing is, did you see our clients? They can choose to appear how they look like. They can change their faces again and again as many times as they want because they are in the metaverse workplace. Wow, and how productive the meeting could be. We don't need to book tickets. We don't need to sort out the weather forecast. And those things can be done in the metaverse workplace. And after such meeting, I feel great, my energy is boosting. Now, let's take a think. So, how the metaverse change our workplace? Some benefits over here. First is cost saving. It's definitely save our cost because we don't need to book tickets, right? We don't need to get ready for the trains and for the flight and for anything not. Just save our cost. And the boss will be happy too because it saves their budget. Another is protect our environment. Why is that? You don't need to get transportation. Do you have to get taxi? No. Do you have to get plane? No, I don't think so. Do you have to get trains? Any transportation all around the metaverse workplace? How are we going to work for that? Just what I'm looking now, I'm the red dot. I'm getting from my wear headset. And all the things can be done in a small space. Protect our environment. Also boost our productivity. Do I have to spend time on going to another city, across China, across the world? No, because I'm in the metaverse workplace. But take a moment to think, as in your future, is business trip all parts of work? In our career, let me take things, you may study engineering, you may study mathematics, you may study as a doctor. What do we need? Do we need to improve our skills day by day to get more professional, to be an expert? You want to survive in such a competitive environment, and how can we do it? practice and improve our skills, talk to cutting-edge experts. So we need to scale up. How can we scale up? All we need is a headset. For example, in the medical industry, I suppose as a doctor, before they get ready for the formal operation, they need to be very, very professional, get more prepared for their operation with their patients, because they want to save people's lives. They are the angels of saving humans' lives. And how can they do it? If they don't have enough practice, how can they feel like they can be so responsible for us? I don't think so. But in a metaverse workplace, they can get ready for the practice. They even can feel the heartbreaks, because they are in a metaverse workplace. And more important thing is, they can get more practice as they can. They can practice for 10 times, 100 times, and even 100,000 times if they want. And don't forget, in the metaverse workplace, it can bring humans together. If we want to study technology from, let's say, Australia, New Zealand, the US, UK, they can get access to the experts in different places, and they can all get together to get conversation, to get practice, because we are in a metaverse workplace. There are less boundaries. And they got hands-on practice together, make everything can be so possible in the metaverse workplace. Let's see some benefits for this. Even though it's just as doctor, but we can feel how it helps us. Industrial training, if you want to be more professional, to be an expert, to boost your skills, and that helps us. But is that all? We'll talk about meeting people in the metaverse workplace. We're talking about skill up. But don't forget, in a metaverse workplace and in our career path, all the foundation, all the infrastructure should be built up in advance before anything happened. So, to build up, what do we need? All we need is a headset. At the moment, I don't really mind telling you my personal story. I studied architecture in my college, and it was quite challenging for me. Why is that? Because when I finished drawing the blueprint, it's very hard for me to imagine how the prototype looked like. Is that big? Or is that small? How can it be installed on the wall? And how it can be, match our client's requirements. It's very hard for me as female to imagine how it can work. And I have to build my own prototype by my hands-on practice. I got metal materials, and sometimes it can even hurt myself because it's too authentic. Now, what if we are in the metaverse workplace? What's gonna happen? Do we have to imagine all the things can appear in front of our eyes? It won't be that challenging for me because it just automatically appears. Do I have to measure the size by my hands? No, I don't think so, because metaverse, all things can be done automatically. It is called technology. And is that all? Well, we're talking about building up. Yeah, I think it's quite enough. So let's say what kind of benefits for us. First, improve our product development. To some extent, it saves my imagination because I don't really need to think too hard about how it's going to work for us. And also improve the accuracy. because I don't need to measure it by my hands. It just appeared according to my requirement, according to our client's requirements. We talk lots of possibilities. It's a lot, isn't it? But is that all? Here, I'm going to tell you some risks. First is distance. During COVID-19 pandemic, how long haven't you met your friends, your family, your colleagues? 3 months, or 6 months, or even longer than that. And once you met each other again, how do you feel? Do you feel like you're losing some connection with them? Are you feeling you're still close to them? And in the metaverse workplace, it may not be very necessary for us to meet people again because all the things can be done in a small space. Maybe you just sit in your bedroom. Maybe you just stand in the restaurant. And all things can be done. Why do you need to meet people? I cannot think about other reasons for that. Distant. Another is authenticity. If you remember, when I talk about drawn up, people can choose to appear how they look like. They can change their faces again, and again, as many times as they want. And how can it happen? Can you really recognize the people who are in front of you, who they are? Are they your colleagues? Are they your friends? Or just strangers? It's very hard to imagine anyway. That's authenticity. We need to think about it. Access. Well, we could talk about that. Does anyone have the accessibility to use the software and hardware? Can they really afford to buy them? And also about companies. Their financial accessibility. Not many companies can be rich enough, can have so much budget to buy such, well, quite expensive equipment to set up their infrastructure. And also the boundaries. For people who are currently working at the moment, I would say especially during COVID-19, can you recognize how many hours you spend in your bedroom just working? Is there anyone who can remind you, please take a break? Please take a break. You're in the COVID time, you just remote working, you don't need to work so hard. Who can remind you for that? Because there's no specific boundary. You don't need to go to the office at 8 a.m. in the early morning and or back home at 5 p.m. You just keep working, and automatically being a workaholic. And in a metaverse workplace, it's just gonna happen again, maybe, because when you wear your headset, you're immersed in the metaverse workplace. No one gonna say, please stop working. You're just working too hard. No, I think you're doing great because you enjoy being addicted to working in your bedroom. You are so enjoying the moment that you are in the metaverse workplace. Will you think about that? Yes, there's some risk over here. We have to remind ourselves there are always two sides. But I want to remind you, in the metaverse workplace, there are huge potential we could not forget. That is bring everyone together wherever we are. And all we need is a headset. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much to Pistachio for that. Ni'n mynd I gymryd egwyl fach now, where we'll take a short refreshment break if you'd like to make your way back to the room on the 3rd floor. And we'll see you back here at around 4:30. Thank you very much. Diolch. Well, croeso nôl, welcome back to you all. Hopefully you've all had some chance to have some refreshments and gather your thoughts after those first 3 talks. And now for another 3. And first to the stage, I welcome Tracy Thomas, the Chief Human Resources Officer at Cardiff Council. Tracy is responsible for providing a strategic focus and people-centred approach to ensure that the council, as a major employer in the city, is well placed to respond to current and future challenges. So Tracy's topic is Cardiff Council, an inclusive journey. Having an inclusive and diverse workforce is crucial to be a successful modern business, Tracy says, and that Cardiff Council has inclusivity at its heart. So to share some ideas on how you can create an inclusive, collaborative journey in staff recruitment, please give Tracy a very warm welcome.
Hello. There we go. As you can see up there, my name's Tracy Thomas and I'm the Chief HR Officer for Cardiff Council. As you might be able to tell by the accent, I'm not originally from Cardiff. I moved here in 1999 and I've worked for Cardiff Council since 2008 and became their Chief HR Officer earlier this year. It's a brilliant role, great role. I get to see how the support that HR give to the organisation allows us to provide excellent services for our citizens, which makes Cardiff a great place to live, work and play. Today I want to talk to you about the journey to building an inclusive organisation that Cardiff Council has gone through. When I moved to Cardiff, I was surprised to discover that it is one of the oldest ethnically diverse communities in Britain. From the early 1800s to the time of the Second World War, migrants from over 50 different countries came to the city to work, initially in the coal export industry and then in occupations linked to international trade. In Butte Town itself, there are records that suggest 50 to 60 different nationalities live side by side in just a few streets as far back as the 1840s. To help me tell you about our journey, I'd like to introduce you to Bobby. Bobby started working at Cardiff Council in November 2020, and Bobby's grandfather is synonymous with Cardiff Council as he is the very familiar Cardiff logo. Bobby grew up listening to tales and stories of their grandfather's days in the council. Bobby loved listening to their grandfather talking about the council, the people who worked there, and the citizens that relied on the services it provided. Bobby's grandfather was proud to be chosen to be the logo for Cardiff Council, and Bobby grew up aspiring to be part of the organisation. One of Bobby's grandfather's favourite sayings was, "Diversity doesn't look like anyone, it looks like everyone." This had a profound effect on Bobby growing up and helped to guide and shape who Bobby was to become today. When Bobby started working for Cardiff Council, they went to the newly developed role within the Connect to Cardiff team. Bobby's role was to support the team in answering incoming calls from citizens and help to resolve their queries and issues. Bobby loved the role immediately. It was rewarding, varied, exciting, but at times also challenging. One of the really good things that Bobby discovered about the council is the employee networks. These networks that we have within the council are employee-led and help support colleagues who have a protected characteristic. For Bobby, this has been such a positive thing, as Bobby's naturally shy and doesn't always open up easily to people. When they started working for the council, Bobby was encouraged to be an advocate and to help inform changes in their role and the wider team that will provide better services to our citizens. Bobby has seen the networks as helped others feel welcomed and supported. And if anyone wasn't sure which network to join, they could become a friend of the networks and were able to support and help each other to achieve some amazing things. I'm going to tell you now about some of the things that the networks have done. So starting off with our disability network, they've helped us gain disability confident employer status. Cardiff Council subscribes to the social model of disability, which makes the important difference between impairment and disability. With the social model, disability is understood to be the results of the barriers society has created that prevents the inclusion of people with impairments, not the impairment itself. This also includes people's attitudes to disability. The network has hosted virtual coffee mornings, and one of those included a Q&A session with some colleagues about their lived experiences of autism and how it impacts on them. They've also hosted the Time to Talk Day, which focused on mental health, and they've actively supported the rollout of the Hidden Disability Sunflower Scheme, and we're the only employer in Wales to have that scheme present. The next new network is our Carers Network. They helped us accomplish Carer Confident Level 2 status. Research from the CIPD has shown that almost a third of working carers have not discussed their caring role in the workplace. A quarter of working carers were also considering giving up their jobs entirely because of having to balance work and care. It's really important to us that we support our employees who are juggling complex personal and work lives. The network has hosted a Careers Week, which included a wide range of talks on how to support carers in the workplace. They've also rolled out the Starting to Care conversation. These are virtual sessions with colleagues from Carers Wales talking about the best way to start a conversation about being a carer at work. The next network is our LGBT+ network, and they've helped us gain Stonewall Diversity Champion status. Inclusion drives better individual, business and organisational outcomes. A 2018 report found that nationally, more than a third of LGBT+ staff have hidden that they're LGBT+ at work due to fear of discrimination. Nearly 2 in 5 bi people aren't out to anyone at work, and 1 in 10 Black, Asian and minority ethnic LGBT+ employees have been physically attacked by customers or colleagues in the 12 months prior to the research. That is not acceptable to anybody. The network have celebrated Pride Month with a number of virtual sessions and online events. 2 of the co-chairs have participated in a virtual discussion hosted by the Proud Councils. Proud Councils bring together the majority of local authorities in South Wales. They've also hosted regular coffee mornings with discussions around a variety of pertinent and significant topics. In addition, members of the network were very excited to learn that one of the co-chairs of the network founded Glitter Cymru, which is a support group for LGBT+ ethnic minority people in South Wales. Our Black, Asian and minority ethnic network have been instrumental in the council signing up to the Race at Work Charter. In the UK, too many individuals from an ethnic minority background still face discrimination and disadvantage when trying to get into work and progress at work compared to their white British peers. Addressing this issue is not just about tackling discrimination, it's also about boosting business performance and developing a more innovative organisation. The network promotes various religious events and festivals throughout the year, such as Ramadan and Diwali, and helps myself and others to understand their significance. They actively drive change by identifying areas of improvement. We're currently looking at developing a number of initiatives in response to their input, including creating more diverse recruitment panels, targeted leadership development, and a reverse mentoring scheme for all members of the networks. Our final network is our Women's Network. They hosted an event marking International Women's Day, which included a talk by the BAFTA award-winning Welsh actress and screenwriter, Ceili Llewellyn. Gender diversity in the workplace can have positive effects across the organisation. It ensures that a wider talent pool is harnessed and the organisation benefits from different points of view and perspectives, sparking creativity and innovation. It's also been proven that having mixed gender groups can improve team dynamics and boost collaboration. The network have worked in partnership with our internal training department, Cardiff Academy, to roll out training and support for employees and managers around the menopause, and they're also currently working on a similar programme around fertility. They've also launched a network-wide coaching scheme, which members are very keen to sign up to. Recently, all the networks took part in a recent Network Events Week, and that was held to raise the profile of each of our networks to ensure that all employees were aware of the support that's available to them. And this is something that will be an annual event from now on. Let's go back to Bobby's journey in the council. When Bobby started in the council's Connect to Cardiff team, it was the middle of the pandemic. One of the first things Bobby's manager said was, inclusivity means not just we're allowed to be there, but we are valued. Smart teams will do amazing things, but truly diverse teams will do impossible things. This is definitely something that Bobby has contributed to throughout the last 2 years as Cardiff Council has managed with a pandemic. Some of the things that we've been involved in is we've been helping to support the most vulnerable in our communities across the city. We've worked closely with our partners, and you might not know that we were involved in these, but to put in place manage the pandemic, put new services in place, such as things like the mass vaccination centres that you'll all be aware of. We were integral in doing that, and Cardiff Council actually run the track and trace system within Cardiff. Our outreach teams have done amazing work to support citizens across Cardiff, where they've been able to tailor services during the pandemic to meet individual service users' needs, including looking after our older people, providing food packages, and looking after our homeless, and providing hostels and taking over hotels in order to remove our homeless people off the streets, and to deal with people with significant health issues that were shielded throughout the pandemic. Bobby has been key in our active process around social media during the pandemic, both to employees and to citizens. Bobby himself has been a breath of fresh air for the Connect to Cardiff team. They've helped the team to look at things in new and different ways. Bobby has not been put off by the "this is how he's always done it" attitude. They've been quick to look for ways to make improvements and suggest changes that deliver a better service. Bobby is inquisitive and not afraid to ask questions, something we really value at Cardiff Council. Bobby feels that he's found their niche at the council, a place where they can feel accepted and valued for who they are and for their contribution to the greater good for the organisation. Bobby's got goals and aspirations and is determined to make their grandfather proud. One day, they'd like to develop their role so they can provide support for a greater number of services. Bobby also recognises that change can take time, but they'll always focus on the end result. Bobby is already identifying opportunities for improvement and can see how their role will support the agendas and initiatives of the council is signed up to and committed to delivering. They want to support the council to be greener, fairer and stronger, be inclusive and safe, be flexible in the way that we deliver better outcomes for the people of Cardiff, be an organisation that adopts multi-location working, where the focus is on the work you do, not where it takes place. Proactively drive through our digital programme for employees through initiatives such as hybrid working, and also for citizens to ensure better service delivery. Bobby knows that success will mean that our workforce reflects the citizens of Cardiff, so that the council is best placed to deliver our services in an appropriate way to meet all service users' needs, and that our senior leadership team will be leading the way and setting an example for other employers in Cardiff. At Cardiff, we believe that a path to diversity begins with supporting, mentoring and sponsoring diverse women and men to become leaders and entrepreneurs. Since my appointment as the Chief Human Resources Officer, I've worked with the senior management team to ensure that each of our employee networks has 2 senior management champions to support them and drive change at a senior level. As a member of that team, I'm able to drive change myself, and to me it's vital that that change is embraced at all levels in the organisation. This commitment around diversity and inclusion within the organisation is a commitment throughout the organisation. It's set in our political agenda through capital ambition, and this is then developed into actions within our corporate and directorate delivery plans to ensure that inclusion and diversity is a golden thread throughout the organisation. I hope you've enjoyed meeting Bobby. And like Bobby, you appreciate the council is made up of lots of businesses working together to ensure that we provide services to the citizens of Cardiff that are of the highest quality. Although I hate to tell you, but there's only one Bobby in the organisation. They're our chatbot within our Connect to Cardiff service. But just so you don't think that's the only thing, there's a myriad of other opportunities for you that are wide-ranging. So I'd like you to encourage you to follow Bobby's example and join us and get involved. There's loads of roles within Cardiff Council. We have professional roles such as solicitors, engineers, accountants, librarians, social workers, teachers, horticulturalists, planners, journalists, human resources, and that's just to name but a few. We've got skilled roles such as trades as gas fitters, plumbers, electricians, mechanics, road workers, customer services, housing and homelessness as a few examples. And then we have general roles around administration, policy development, contact centre, hub offices. We've also established an anonymised, it's very difficult to say, online recruitment process to ensure that all applicants have the same opportunities and there's no unconscious bias. And we've introduced online interviews to make our recruitment process more efficient. As well as jobs within the council, there's other community projects that are important to us. We need to ensure we provide support to the young people within our city, and the Cardiff commitment supports the vision of the public, private and third sectors will work in partnership with schools and education providers to connect children and young people to the vast range of opportunities available in the world of work. Cardiff is the first city in Wales to participate in the UK Committee for UNICEF's National Child-Friendly Cities and Communities initiative. Our ambition is that Cardiff will be recognised as a child-friendly city, a city with children and young people at its heart, where the rights of children and young people are respected by all, and it's a great place to grow up. We will work together to create a city where all children and young people can share their voice and have an input on decisions being made that will affect them. And very appropriately at the moment, One Planet Cardiff is the Council's strategic response to the climate emergency. Climate change is already shaping our lives. We're living in a climate emergency with stark warnings and evidence globally that urgent action is needed. If we are to avert the dangers ahead, our One Planet Cardiff strategy proposes a wide range of ambitious actions that will begin to form the basis of a delivery plan to achieve carbon neutrality. It aims to do this in a way that supports new green economies and greater social well-being in the city. I'd appreciate this opportunity to talk to you and thank you for your time. I'd encourage you all to take a look at our website and follow us on social media and get involved in whichever way you feel is right for you. I hope our paths cross again in the not too distant future. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Tracy. Diolch yn fawr. And next up is Sianca Deepdas, a Cardiff alumni and the founder and CEO of Lattice, a construction technology company headquartered in London. He had previously founded 2 startups in property investment and fintech space. He holds a master's degree in business administration from Cardiff University in 2010 to 2011. Sianca's chosen theme today is the future of work for startup founders. He says that the future of the workplace is, at the moment, as we know, very unclear and full of assumptions and theories. And for startups, this means a whole new challenge, but also presents once-in-a-lifetime opportunities. To give us a better idea of the challenges facing startups during the pandemic, please welcome Sianca to the stage.
Our generation has just witnessed the biggest shift in workplace behavior since the Industrial Revolution. You see, back then you had factories. Factories had tools, and you had to go visit the factory to get the work done, and you had to be monitored by people for a certain amount of time to see that you are productive. But this has changed. Thankfully, now the employers have understood that you don't need to monitor them 24/7. You can be trusted to do the work from anywhere. And the biggest shift is that employees have now understood that they do not have to spend a significant amount of their time to travel and show that they are productive at work. Now, this has been quite evident because all these big startups have given the choice to the employees how they want to work and where they want to work. But do understand, these companies have been successful before COVID. They have a lot of resources, their processes are set, they have structured teams. But what about startups? We jump the cliff and then we figure out, okay, how do we fly? So we do not have that amount of resources, we do not have set processes, and everything is an experiment. So how can we win this remote working environment or create a workplace where we can bring a more productive workforce? To answer that question, you don't need to look far. There's a company called Hopin. They scale the company to more than 800 people, and understand this, from 44 different countries, and they have 100% remote workforce. And they're pretty good at it. If you go to their Glassdoor, they're even better than the best names available. So how are they doing it? And why am I talking about this? You see, I founded a company in the lockdown. And guess what? We are building software for the world. My co-founder is 8,000 kilometers away in Bangalore, and my team is spread across, again, big country like India. And I am based out of London, and the future which I see for my company is the ability to hire from everywhere, or anywhere. So there is talent anywhere. Imagine you do not have regional boundaries, you do not have countries as boundaries, it's borderless. You can hire from anywhere. And this can be done using 3 things, which as a personal experience I have found that these are the 3 things which as a founder you can control and you can improvise. First, communication. So you will find hundreds of articles, thousands of YouTube videos, and if you go to TikTok, every day somebody is talking about something. But I didn't have time for all this. So I went to Google and searched, how do astronauts communicate? And as I dig deep and understanding, you see, if they could figure it out outside the orbit, we can do it here itself, isn't it? I came across a term called Capcom. So Capcom is a communication bridge between the control center here and the spaceship. They filter out all the communication which is happening. And if we can learn from how these Capcom can operate, we can actually do the same in our startups as well. We found these 3 things which make Capcom very successful. First, keep simple, meaningful conversation. What that means is you keep your vision and the clarity of what you started as a company intact, and it stays as you grow from 10 people to 100 people to 1,000 people. Second, most important, You will all come across later in your life that when customers ask for something, when it goes to product team, then it goes to development team, the entire story changes as it goes down. You do not know what they actually ask for. So if you can, and in virtual situation, it becomes even more challenging. So what you can do is, if you have a process set where the message do not lose its entirety as it moves down. Third, and most importantly, is each member in the mission, they know what their task and responsibility is. So in a startup, even if you have 10 people or 100 people, if you can communicate that, okay, this is your job, this is what you're answerable for, you can create a very, very nice communication channel for all your team members. This is more important, culture. Why is it important? Because it seeps through your brand and how your company's customer talk to each other. So if you do not have a good culture, you're not doing a good work. So it's very difficult when you create a culture virtually, because you do not have the physical thing which we have, talking to each other, knowing each other's personality. How you can create this is the sense of we greater than me. As founders, you have to understand that company, you win as a team, you take failures as a team. And when you let go that ego, you create a trust and transparent organization. And with trust and transparency, what happens? Your main mission, which is solving customer problems, take the center stage. You do not go into politics. Ego is over. Trust and transparency. Perks. So most of you will be thinking perks. Okay, first thing comes in your mind is Google, all these swanky offices. And this guy, I don't know what he's doing in the second, some weird yoga pose, but this is most comfortable way of working in an office environment. You have good food, you have the best, favorite t-shirt or jeans to wear at work. But virtually, this has changed. You are probably in your best possible attire, that is your sweatshirt and jeans at home. You have the best food at tap of your button, you don't need this. And third and most important, if you need a break, you just lie down in your bed, your own comfy bed. So these are not the perks people are looking for now. You have to get creative. Most of the startups are going for equity share. This is making you partner in the firm. Why? Because as the company grows, you also grow in wealth. Secondly, there have been various innovative ways. Some are telling no fixed holidays, choose your own 22, 23 calendar days. That gives them the independence to choose when they want their holidays. Secondly, most of pet parents are never included in the pet insurance policy. Many startups are giving the new pet parents pet insurance. And most importantly, the companies who really care, they are giving mental health care also. And there are very few startups like this one, who gives the opportunity to invest your salary back to the company you're working for. So you become the investor in that company. And not to forget, give them the best tools possible to do their work. On your right, you will see these pods. I think in the future, you will see more of these pods coming in your co-working spaces, in your living room. This will be your private console, your private spaceship to do your work. And just to sum up, to create the next generation of successful companies, you need to have a successful remote working strategy. And for that, always remember, communicate well like an astronaut, build a culture, not an ego, and most importantly, be creative with the perks. For us, we offer the best brews to our employees, and we make sure that we share a pint often. So thank you, and good luck.
Thank you, Tashanka. And it's my pleasure now to introduce the speaker who will be wrapping up for us today, Professor Alan Felsted. Alan has been studying employment-related issues for more than 30 years. Since completing his PhD, he spent 5 years working at Nuffield College in Oxford, 14 years at the University of Leicester, and 15 years, and on my notes here I have, and counting, at Cardiff University. So Alan has chosen the topic of the growing reality and normality of working from home. The title of his talk is Backwater to Mainstream, Home Working Rockets and is Here to Stay. Since the pandemic began, he says working from home has rocketed and has become the norm. But how does this affect workplace productivity now that the COVID-19 pandemic is seemingly starting to ease? Rhowch groeso felly, give our last speaker a very warm welcome, Professor Alan Felsted.
Prynhawn da bawb, Alan y Felsted ydw i. Dwi'n athro yn ysgol y gweithorau cymdeithasol Prifysgolcaerdydd. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alan Felsted, and I'm a research professor in the School of Social Sciences at Cardiff University. I've started my talk with a song which was released in 2016, well before the pandemic began. It is by Fifth Harmony, is entitled Work From Home. Given its name, it has become the unofficial anthem for many office workers since March 2020. In its words, you don't gotta go to work, we can work from home. This is certainly true as I stand here today, but this has not always been the case. For centuries, employers have built factories where workers have worked in large groups to produce goods. The factories and plants can be vast. For example, the steelworks plant in Talbot stretches for over a mile along the South Wales coast. Office workers too have been brought together in large numbers in city centre open plan offices, such as the Welsh Government's offices in Cardiff, a stone's throw from where I'm standing today. Workers, on the other hand, have lived separately from factories, warehouses and offices, where they went to do their work. Workers have lived in houses, such as those pictured here, or in rather grander houses, such as those on this slide. In fact, you might recognise these houses as they were used in a recent ITV drama called Hollington Drive. These are all real houses and are part of a real housing estate on the western side of Cardiff. The key point I want to make is that workplaces and homes have traditionally been separate from one another. People went out to work and came back home. The separation has remained intact since the Industrial Revolution, at least for most people. Even so, for centuries, some work has been carried out at home. This was a very different type of home working to the type of home working we think about today. In fact, when I started investigating working at home in the mid-1990s, it did not refer to office workers at all, but to those in the boot and shoe trade, the clothing industry, as well as packers and assemblers of items such as Christmas crackers, handbags, nappies and children's toys. These workers were often lowly paid, off the books, paid cash in hand and subject to exploitation. However, working at home was growing well before the pandemic began, but the rate of change was slow and gradual. For example, it was relatively rare in the early 1980s, when only 1.5% of those in employment in the UK reported that they worked mainly at home. By 2019, it had risen, but only to 4.7%, as you can see on this slide. It had taken 40 years to rise by a mere 3 percentage points. Slow growth, I think you'll agree. The pandemic turbocharged this shift. The proportion of people reporting working at home rose to almost 43%, almost overnight, as lockdown restrictions were introduced across the UK. At its height, 12 million people in the UK were working exclusively at home. Despite the recent relaxation of government restrictions, the latest official figures suggest that 30% of workers are still working at home because of coronavirus. This means they're not commuting to work. They're not going out to work, but they're instead walking a matter of feet to their new places of work. So why the change? Well, the pandemic, of course. To get a grip on the spread of coronavirus, the instruction and then advice to work at home if you can has remained in place for months. This message has come from governments and leaders seeking to save lives. Even today, this advice remains in place in some parts of the UK, not in others. In others, advising people to work at home is part of the contingency plans to be rolled out should the virus take off in winter months. Plan B, I think Boris Johnson calls it. Technology has made shifting work into the home easier for managers and office-based workers. It is easy to forget that the iPhone was only launched in 2007. It's not long ago. The ability to make video calls was added 3 years later in 2010. It's just not long ago at all. Holding video conferences with multiple callers on a laptop, smartphone or tablet is a more recent innovation. Zoom, for example, was launched in April 2011. Google Meet in February 2017, and Teams was unveiled a month later, in March 2017. It is difficult to contemplate working at home without these applications. The shift has led to changes in consumption patterns too. Deodorant sales, for example, have fallen. On this, two unlikely bedfellows, the Daily Star and the Financial Times, agree. Sales of bleach and jogging bottoms have also risen as working at home has become more common and people clean their houses, now their workplaces, more and swap business suits, ties, skirts for jogging bottoms. At times this has led to shortages, not just of toilet rolls, but of jogging bottoms. DIY sales too have risen as many people are spending more time at home and have little excuse but to fix things around the house that have left unfixed for years and years, or spruce things up. No excuse. Listeners to breakfast show programmes also down as fewer have commuted to work. Radio programmes hosted by Zoe Ball, Greg James, Rome Kemp, Chris Evans and the Today programme on Radio 4 are among the shows to have fewer listeners than before the pandemic. This is recent news, by the way. However, some have bucked the trend. BBC 5 Live, for example, recorded a significant boost, probably helped by coverage of summer sport events, such as the Euros and the Olympics. But is home working likely to stick? Is it here to stay? Will employers tolerate employees out of sight when the pandemic has passed? What has happened to employee productivity? Can employees do more in their pyjamas than their suits? The left-hand side of the screen here. Or are employees more likely to slack when out of sight? As you can see from this graph, on the whole, home working does not appear to have affected productivity either way, positively or negatively. The biggest column is in the middle, denoting no change. It appears to have made little difference either way. Employer surveys also reveal a similar pattern. No major hit to productivity. If anything, it seems to have had a beneficial effect. The appetite for home working in the future among employees also appears very strong. When asked whether they would like to continue to work at home when social distancing restrictions are fully lifted, 9 out of 10 said that they would like to do so. That's a big figure. Around half wanted to work at home always or often. Again, a big figure. Only around 1 in 10 of those who had experienced working at home don't want to do so in the future. A relatively small figure. Look at the columns on the left in comparison to the columns on the right. Also, many have been allowed and trusted to work at home for the first time. Before the pandemic, home working was something of a privilege, and as I hopefully have shown, was not widely taken up. The pandemic has changed all that, with millions working at home, many for the first time. While it is not for everyone, it has worked for many who do not want to revert back to old ways of working. To borrow a phrase from the pantomime Aladdin, which is showing in Cardiff later this month, I believe. I'm going, by the way. To borrow a phrase from Aladdin, the genie is out of the bottle. It is difficult to see how the clock can be turned back. Furthermore, people need not be... I can see you obviously recognise the person there. Furthermore, people need not be at home to do their work, but can do so wherever they can get an internet connection, which is stable, of course, and secure. This could be from a coffee shop, a library, a hotel lobby, or even from a Caribbean island. This picture shows me tuning into a webinar on changing patterns of work, and that's no lie, I kid you not, on changing patterns of work from Bonaire, which is a small island in the southern Caribbean. The right is my view beyond the screen. Casting my eye to the future, I predict that less time will be spent commuting into work 5 days a week, less time will be spent in the office, physically in the presence of others, more time will be spent off-site. That might be at home or in coffee shops, hotel rooms and so forth, or even on a Caribbean island. And the 9 to 5 rhythm of working time will become less relevant to more people, with working time organised around domestic and family commitments. Instead, I predict a growth in remote and hybrid forms of working. I'm going to end this talk with another pop song. This time it was written and recorded by Dolly Parton in 1980. It is called 9 to 5. It was the theme tune for a film about gender inequality in the workplace. More recently, it has been made into a Broadway and West End musical. However, for me, it reflects a style of working that is starting to fade out, with commuting to work 9 to 5 less relevant for more and more people. Diolch am I sylwch. Thank you for your attention. I will now play the song. It does have subtitles. If you're willing, you can always sing to it or even dance in the aisle. Some clapping, go on, that's good. Go on, go for it.
Well, what a fantastic end to a brilliant afternoon. Ni wedi clywed gan 6 siaradwr arbennig sydd wedi taflu goleuni ar yr heriau ni wedi wynebu dros gyfnod y pandemig and y cyfleoedd ni wedi derbyn hefyd. We've heard about the struggles of the past year and a half, but the subsequent opportunities that have risen too. The importance of asking questions, caring for people's well-beings, caring for our own well-being. We've been inspired to believe that we can shape our futures. You as graduates can do that. We've learned the value of nature within our workplaces and workspaces. We've entered the workplace metaverse, and we've listened to a bit of Dolly Parton too. What's not to love? So to those 6 speakers for their hard work and all their preparations, please give another round of applause. They've all been brilliant. Diolch yn fawr hefyd. Thank you very much to everyone who's been involved in arranging this fantastic event. I think the tech team, I was watching them working before we started, the hard work that's gone into everyone in a TEDx t-shirt here today. We know how much work's gone into it. And thank you again to Educators Wales for sponsoring, and to the university, of course, for their fantastic facilities in this new building. Now, before you leave, there is an opportunity for some networking and informal chats. I'm sure the 6 talkers would be more than happy to share some further ideas with you. I'm sure those 20 minutes weren't quite enough for them. So from me, diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you very much and a good evening to you all. Diolch.